The virus is creating havoc around the world. Almost 3 million people infected, tens of thousands dead. But more devastating than the cost in human life has been the cost in human livelihood. Billions and trillions of economic dollars left to waste. Millions upon millions jobs lost. In the world's biggest economy, the United States, coronavirus-related recession continues to ripple. By the beginning of May, 3.2 million workers had already filed for initial unemployment benefits. In UK, the Bank of England has been warning of a painful and slow recovery in every sector. In countries which feel they are starting to come out of the pandemic, rules are slowly being eased as the likes of China, Germany, Italy, and France begin to test the waters of economic revival. In the southern hemisphere, the island nation of New Zealand is holding out hope to the world. With positive cases firmly in control, their Prime Minister offered global businesses a virus-free platform to operate from.
Do note that this is subject to normal regulatory approvals.
But the reality remains that economies are in doldrums. Multiple industries, small and big businesses, and non-essential jobs remained suspended. Auto, entertainment, hospitality, aviation all face an uncertain future as governments and industry continue to seek a way out of this crisis.
As countries across the world went into a lockdown mode and a halt on international travel came into place, the global aviation industry went into a tailspin. And even as the pandemic continues to wreak havoc, the crucial aviation sector that connects nations across the world is witnessing a flurry of layoffs, a flurry of pay cuts as well. Most airlines are changing their plans on a weekly basis, and many have shifted their flight resumption schedules from May to June or July, September. The global airline industry is now on the brink of bankruptcy. Remember, it already operates on a very bleak profit margin. Watch this report for more.
With nearly two-thirds of the world's 26,000 passenger aircraft grounded, the global airline industry stands to lose $252 billion. The airline industry has been hit by the shutdown of most of its traffic, forcing mass layoffs and even bankruptcies. A survey commissioned by the International Air Transport Association reveals that 40% of potential travelers will wait for at least 6 to 8 months after the pandemic ends before they fly again.
First of all, they want to be reassured. They want to be in a comfortable situation related to the processes that you will use. They want to be also they want to wait probably a little before coming back massively on our aircraft, and so they are relying on governments, but also on airlines, on the industry, on the agencies, on professionals to build the appropriate measures for safe travel all around the world. And so that's what we are trying to do.
Chicago-based Boeing has initiated a voluntary layoff plan for its 160,000 employees as the aircraft manufacturer struggles to stem the financial strain from the COVID-19 pandemic. European plane maker Airbus has issued a bleak assessment of the impact of the coronavirus crisis, telling the company's 135,000 employees to brace for potentially deeper job cuts and warning its survival is at stake without immediate action. British Airways is set to cut up to 12,000 jobs from its 42,000 strong workforce due to a collapse in business because of the pandemic. British airline Virgin Atlantic has announced its plans to cut 3,150 jobs as it counts the cost of COVID-19 pandemic. Europe's largest airline by passenger numbers, Ryanair, also plans to cut up to 3,000 jobs and operate less than 1% of flights through June.
It breaks my heart we're going to have to let go 15% of our pilots and cabin crew. We're going to have pay cuts for everybody else. I've taken a pay cut myself of 50% out to the end of March 2021. I think we have to lead on this issue. And we're also looking at our aircraft orders now and seeing whether we delay or cancel some of those orders so that we right-size the airline for the next year or two, which are going to be grim.
EasyJet has laid off its 4,000 UK-based cabin crew for 2 months. Qantas has put 20,000 staff on leave. 700 pilots at American Airlines have agreed to take early retirement. And Virgin Australia has collapsed.
Not the end for Virgin Australia and its unique culture. Never one to give up, I want to assure all of you and our competitor that we are determined to see Virgin Australia back up and running soon.
With thousands of planes parked on tarmacs across the world and no clear timetable for the resumption of air travel, billionaire investor Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, sold all of its shares in the 4 largest US airlines.
The world changed for airlines, and I wish them well, but it's one of the businesses we have. We have businesses we own directly that are going to be hurt significantly.
The global airline industry is staring at deep losses already, and the future doesn't seem much better.
No industry in the world was strong enough to have escaped the impact of coronavirus pandemic, but the tourism and hospitality industry suffered a huge blow. Travel and tourism represents 10.3% of global GDP and supports 1 in 10 jobs on this planet, making it a backbone of many economies around the world. But according to the World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, the pandemic has caused a 22% fall in international tourist arrivals during the first quarter of 2020. And the crisis could lead to an annual decline between 60% to 80 thereabout percent when compared to the 2019 figures. Here's a report.
If the pandemic continues for a few more months, it will cause a global loss of 75 million jobs and $2.1 trillion in revenue, says the World Travel and Tourism Council, a trade group that represents major global travel companies. And among those hardest hit is America's travel industry. The US Travel Association projects a loss of 4.6 million jobs through May, a figure likely to increase. The pandemic has forced the hotel industry to undergo a major shift, one that is expensive but necessary for business.
They park their cars anymore because that would violate the social distancing rules of the commandments. A bellman can't take their luggage anymore because that handoff would violate the rules of social distancing. So it is really a new normal for both the staff and our guests.
Cleaning has been quite complex, the way how we organize that. The cleaning process right now it takes at least 72 hours.
The UK's hospitality sector has taken a dramatic financial hit since they were ordered to close in March. London's most famous names across Mayfair, Knightsbridge Notting Hill and Chelsea, where once customers would fly in for a booking made months in advance, are now offering takeaways, online cooking classes and recipe boxes.
Almost certainly there's going to be need a continued government support, but I think that my view personally is that we really need that to be a blended approach, with people being allowed to reopen and encouraged to reopen and work and trade through social distancing.
Tourism is a pillar of the Greek economy, bringing in billions of euros each year and employing 1 in every 5 Greek. And the month of May is traditionally considered the start of the summer tourist season. But today, silence engulfs the cobbled streets, tourist markets, and ancient landmarks. Over in Spain, top restaurants and chefs are trying to experiment and reinvent to tide over the crisis.
Estoy iniciando este proyecto para hacer comida delivery y takeaway de mi especialidad como cocinero, que son las verduras y los arroces. Y desde aquí del invernadero, pues como empecé mi primer restaurante y como arranqué la segunda vez que perdí mi restaurante, yo solo hago los pedidos, cocino, empaqueto, entrego.
In Italy's Capri Island, turquoise waves continue to break peacefully on beaches as the pandemic-induced lockdown keeps tourists away. The tourism sector in France is also in dire straits, with an estimated loss of over 10 billion euros a month due to the pandemic. Weeks of confinement and border closures have left Paris hotspots completely empty and restaurants and cinemas shut. A Dutch restaurant, in the meanwhile, has come up with an idea to offer classy outdoor dining in the age of coronavirus. Small glass cabins built for 2 or 3 people, creating intimate cocoons on a public patio. Japan's hotel industry is feeling the pain, with more than 20% companies having gone bankrupt by the end of April. At this hotel, which is very close to the Olympic venue, the occupancy rate slumped to 5%. When, with the postponement of the Tokyo Olympics, bookings were cancelled. With millions of tourists across the globe cancelling plans for vacations, work trips and family visits, hugely popular home rental startup Airbnb Inc. has also announced laying off 25% of its workforce, which translates to about 1,900 employees.
While you can see global tourism and hospitality industries struggling to map a way out of this particular crisis, China, where the COVID-19 virus first appeared, has now given a boost to its domestic tourism sector. Here's a look.
While the global tourism industry lies in limbo due to the contagious virus, one country says it earned around $6 billion in the first week of May, all from domestic tourists. China. With the coronavirus epidemic in the country slowing down, China, where the COVID-19 virus was first detected, celebrated the 5-day May Day holiday recently. Having followed strict lockdown measures for over 2 months, when some travel restrictions were eased in the past few weeks, domestic tourists simply flocked in, or rather flocked out. China, like other countries, is trying hard to get tourism back on its feet, but all of it is being done keeping safety precautions in mind, say the authorities responsible. Outdoor tourist sites that resumed operations have put an entry cap of 30% of their daily visitor capacity. An indoor tourist site still remain closed. China's tourism ministry claimed that the May Day holidays generated 43.23 billion yuan in revenue from domestic tourists. But this will not make up for the loss that has already been suffered. According to China Tourism Academy estimates, domestic tourist visits will see an overall reduction of 932 million in 2020. But China coming out of the shadow of COVID-19 wasn't just about tourism getting a boost. Overall sales in the first week of May recovered to almost 75% of its normal trend. Even IT giant Apple reported sales from China have picked up and were headed in the right direction. China, where the virus was first detected, is a major market for Apple. Responsible for about a sixth of its overall sales, it is also home to most of Apple's contract factories. China was the first to suffer, and its businesses recovering gives hope to tottering economies around the world where the virus continues to ravage.
As the world begins to cautiously ease COVID-19 lockdown measures, entertainment companies, film and TV studios across the country are now working out what the new normal would really look like for the show business. They say there is no business like the show business. We zoom on the Walt Disney Company to see how the industry leader fared in the era of COVID-19. Here's a look.
When the world's largest media and entertainment company, Walt Disney, reported a loss in profit to the tune of $1.6 billion, the message hit home. The business of show is in big trouble. In the first week of May, Walt Disney missed Wall Street expectations for quarterly profit. This was the first report since the coronavirus crisis shut down theme parks across the globe and brought Hollywood to a standstill. The health crisis started battering businesses across Disney's global portfolio by mid-March, forcing the closures of its theme parks and putting television and film production on hold as theaters remained shut. In a bid to recover some of its losses, the entertainment giant staged a limited reopening of its Shanghai Disney Resort. Adults, kids, and senior citizens wearing masks were seen wandering around, while staff and security guards were seen armed with contactless thermometers and hand sanitizers. Even the company's direct-to-consumer segment, which includes online streaming platform Disney Plus, reported an operating loss of $812 million.
Bottom line is Disney's in a lot of trouble here. This is a company that leveraged themselves right at the top of the market, buying $70 billion in Fox's entertainment assets to get into streaming, and streaming is one of the worst businesses in the world. It's great for you, it's great for me, right? We love these options, but there's no pricing power and it costs a fortune to maintain and new content.
Experts fear the high-touch, high-volume, kid-centered nature of the parks and Disney's need to prevent damage to a brand synonymous with safety and families make reopening of theme parks a difficult problem to solve. Industry experts also believe that while the crisis has taken a major toll on the entire media industry, Disney has been hit particularly hard because of its reliance on in-person experiences such as parks, movie theaters, cruise ships, and retail stores. Once named the happiest place on earth, the theme question parked in everyone's mind is, how will Disney fare at the end of the COVID-19
roller coaster ride.
That's all that we have for you on Shut by Virus, but don't go anywhere. Lots more coming up in just about a bit on India Today. Stay with us.